There is something you do that almost no one notices. Someone asks how you're doing. You say fine, you say tired, you say busy, and then you move on, because moving on is what you do. Not because you don't feel things, you feel everything. But somewhere along the way, the feelings stopped having an exit. They went underground, and you got so good at living up there, on the surface, that people stopped asking what's underneath. By the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why that happened. Not as a flaw, not as damage, but as the most logical response to the environment you grew up in. This usually starts early, in a home where emotions were either dangerous or invisible. Maybe nobody yelled. Maybe it was quiet. But you learned, without anyone saying it directly, that your feelings were inconvenient, that your job was to be steady, to not add to the weight already in the room. So you watched. You measured the temperature of every interaction. You learned to read the air before you spoke. Daniel Siegel, the neuroscientist and attachment researcher, describes this as the brain learning to regulate itself in the absence of co-regulation. When a child's emotional needs go consistently unmet, the nervous system stops broadcasting those needs outward and starts suppressing them inward. The amygdala, the brain's threat detection center, learned that expressing vulnerability was a form of risk. And so it built a wall, not out of stubbornness, out of survival. You are not broken. You are calibrated. Your brain did exactly what it was built to do. The first sign is that you don't have words for what you're feeling. Not because the feelings aren't there, they are. But when someone asks, you reach for language and there's nothing, a blankness. You might say stressed or fine, because those are the only two settings that seem available. Psychologists call this alexithymia, a reduced ability to identify and describe emotional states. It's not a personality type. It's a learned pattern. You didn't learn the words because no one used them around you. And when the feelings had no names, they had nowhere to go. And this connects directly to the next sign. The second sign is that your body speaks for you instead. Tension in your jaw, shoulders that never fully drop, a tightness in your chest that you've just accepted as normal. Peter Levine, who developed somatic experiencing, spent decades documenting how unexpressed emotion doesn't disappear. It stores in muscle tissue, in posture, in chronic low-grade activation of the nervous system. You don't cry when you're sad, but your back goes out. You don't say you're overwhelmed, but you can't sleep. Your body kept the score while you kept moving. The third sign is that you help instead of opening up. When someone you care about is struggling, you fix. You research. You show up with solutions, with logistics, with your time, because action feels manageable and words feel like exposure. This is what Pete Walker calls the fawn response, learning that being useful was the safest form of connection. That love earned through function is more reliable than love given freely. So you love by doing. You think, if I just keep being useful, that's enough. You've been thinking that for 20 years, and you've stopped expecting anyone to notice what it costs you. The fourth sign is that being needed feels safer than being known. You're the person people lean on, the reliable one, the one who doesn't make things complicated, and part of you likes that role, not because you're manipulative, but because it's the one place you feel certain of your value. Attachment researcher John Bowlby's work on avoidant attachment describes this pattern precisely. When early caregiving was conditional or inconsistent, children learned to suppress attachment needs and present as self-sufficient. Not because they don't need connection, because needing felt like a risk too big to take twice. Stop for a second. Everything described so far, the silence, the body holding what the mouth won't say, the helping, the self-sufficiency, none of it is emotional immaturity. None of it is weakness. It is a system, an adaptive system that a younger version of you built in real time to stay safe in an environment that didn't have space for your full emotional range. The problem isn't that the system exists. The problem is that you're still running it. in relationships where it's safe to put it down. The fifth sign is that vulnerability feels like losing control. When you get close to saying something real, something true, there's a physical response. The throat tightens. The moment passes. You make a joke instead, or you go quiet, or you change the subject so smoothly the other person doesn't even notice the turn. Stephen Porges' polyvagal theory explains this as the nervous system's shutdown response. When emotional exposure triggers the same threat signal as physical danger, the body shuts communication down before the mind even decides to. It's not a choice. It happened before you chose. And the cost is that the people who want to know you never quite can. The sixth sign is that you feel loneliest in rooms full of people who love you. You're at the dinner table. They're laughing. You're there, but there's glass between you and all of it. You know they care, but you can't feel it land. The ACE study, the Adverse Childhood Experiences research by Filiti and Anda, found that early emotional deprivation doesn't just affect behavior. It affects the nervous system's capacity to receive care. The part of you that should feel safe when someone's close. It's been offline for a long time. So, the care is real, but something in you can't quite let it in. When you put this together, something becomes clear. You don't talk about your feelings because you were taught, without words, without intention, that feelings were a liability, that needing things was a burden, that the safest version of you was the useful one, the steady one, the one who had it together. You are not emotionally unavailable. You are emotionally unwitnessed for most of your life by the people who were supposed to show you it was safe. You are allowed to have needs without explaining them first. You are allowed to receive care without earning it through exhaustion. You are allowed to say, "I don't know how I feel yet," and have that be enough. You are allowed to be known, not just needed. Not because it's easy, because it's what you've never let yourself have. Drop a comment and tell me this. What's the one feeling you have the hardest time saying out loud? Not to anyone else, just here, in this comment section, where no one knows you. I want to see what's actually underneath.